Welcome to another public live stream session. And man, do we have some 401k to talk about. So, how much should you have in your 401k savings? I'm going to give you the full breakdown by age from 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. How much do you think you'll need in retirement so that you have enough to last throughout your lifetime? And I want to show you this. According to a Yahoo Finance article, Americans on average expect they should have $1.27 million for a comfortable retirement. But the problem is that Americans on average have only saved about $89,300 in their 401k or IRA, or just 7% of that target amount. And keep in mind that $1.27 million is the average amount. If you live in a rural area, then $1 million might make sense. But if you live in an urban area, that $1 million might not be enough, even with a paid off mortgage. On my channel, I teach my audience about the financial independence and retire early movement. The Trinity study taught me that the 4% withdrawal rate with a higher allocation in equity will last my investments for at least 30 years or longer. So the 4% withdrawal rate of $1 million is $40,000 a year. Let me know in the comment section down below if you can live on $40,000 a year with your mortgage paid off. If you're on the FIRE journey, you already have that number figured out. So it really comes down to your expenses before you decide how much you really need to retire or retire early. Let me scroll down here in this article here. So this is the fancy chart, right? Where it's sorted by age group. According to the Northwestern Mutual Survey, the overall expectation to retire comfortably is $1.27 million, but they've only invested $89,300 towards that goal as of 2023, and which is about 7% of that target amount. And that is nowhere close to where they should be. For people in their 20s, they surveyed that they expect $1.2 million in their retirement investments, and their current progress is $35,800, or about 3%. For people in their 30s, they surveyed that they expect $1.44 million in their retirement investments, and their current progress is $67,400, or about 4.7%. And for people in their 40s, they're expecting to retire with $1.28 million, and their current progress is about $77,400, or about 6%. This is interesting because their expectation is lower than those in their 30s, but they've only invested $10,000 more on average than those in their 30s. And for people in their 50s, they have the highest retirement expectation with $1.56 million, and their current progress is $110,900, or 7.1%. And the studies show that people in this age group are going to rely on Social Security retirement benefits when they reach their retirement age. And Gen X in their 50s is the most concerned, with more than 55% of people surveyed that they won't be financially ready to retire by age 60. They're also worried about whether Social Security benefits will still be around by the time they retire. If Congress does nothing about Social Security, I think people in this age group would not be ready to retire unless they do something to change their savings right now. And for people in their 60s and 70s, their retirement expectations are between $936,000 and $968,000. Their current progress is between $112,500 and $113,900, or about 11.5%. This is the baby boomer generation getting ready to retire with Social Security retirement pensions. But most of them surveyed feel like they're not ready to retire because they didn't reach their retirement goals yet, even with Social Security retirement benefits. And they're now expecting to retire at the age of 71 because they need more time to invest in their 401ks and IRAs while collecting Social Security. And I've said this many times on this channel that your savings rate matter more than the stock market returns. How much you need to invest to achieve $1.2 million will depend on your current age and your stock allocation. But there are several reasons why Americans have only made 7% progress in their retirement investments. And reason number one is debt. Americans are drowning in debt from student loans, personal loans, credit cards, HELOC, and car loans. The average car payment right now is $716 a month, and the average student loan debt is over $37,000 per borrower. These debt repayments are slowing their retirement investments. And I understand what they're going through because I once had $110,000 in consumer debt. I encourage you to download my free financial resources by visiting firestarchat.com/resources because I have several spreadsheets that you can use to pay down your debt fast. I paid off over $60,000 in debt while making $58,000 a year in income in 2 years because I lit a fire on my butt and got really intense about it. And if you want to get very serious about your 401k investments, you need to get rid of your non-mortgage debt first. And reason number two is inflation. This is something that we had no control over, maybe except for the government. But here we are dealing with such high inflation after the economic shutdown, and we're dealing with the prices that we shouldn't be experiencing for another 3 to 4 years. My wife and I redo our budget every year, and you should see our 2021 budget compared to 2022 and 2023, and we're paying way more for groceries, utilities, transportation, and other non-discretionary expenses. But not having any debt definitely helped. But we still had to adjust our budget to find several things that we could cut costs from. And we do our budget every year in January to adjust for the previous year's inflation. And reason number three is overpaying for your house. And I've talked to many people who overpay for their homes, and now they're paying 30, 40, or even 50% of their income towards their mortgage payments and homeowners insurance, HOA, and other housing expenses. The basic rule of thumb is to maintain your housing expenses, including your mortgage payments, under 25% of your gross income. And I would argue that 30% is probably the most you should pay for your housing, but only if you know for a fact that your income will increase by 5% within the next 18 months. I get it. It's tough. The housing market is extremely difficult to get into. The housing prices haven't really come down, and the interest rates are at 7%, 7.5% for a 30-year fixed mortgage. It is very difficult. But in any event, people can't save for retirement because they're paying way too much for their mortgage. And reason number four is the lack of strategy and goals to achieve their retirement number. As a financial coach, I've talked to hundreds of clients who didn't have a clear direction on what they needed to do to take advantage of the 401k, Roth IRA, and HSA. Some people left their money in bonds for almost a decade before they realized their portfolios only grew 2 to 3% annually. And some people cashed out their 401ks or took out a 401k loan to pay off their debts. Building wealth requires financial education. And that's why I created this channel. And I got to tell you, the most promising generation, and you'd be surprised when I say this, is actually Gen Z or people in their 20s because they're getting a lot of free financial education on social media and the internet. And I'm not saying that it's hopeless for millennials, Gen X, or baby boomers. I'm not saying that at all. And I just think our education system really failed to teach us about personal finances, budgeting, taxes, and investing. I didn't truly start investing. I'm a millennial. I didn't truly start investing until I was 31 years old because I spent 2 years prior to that paying off my debt. But I'm really glad that I found that book on my display shelf behind me, The Millionaire Next Door, because that book changed my life. And I want to show you how it changed my life because that book allowed me to create my own retirement diagram and timeline. First, we had to figure out what investment vehicles we had to grow our retirement investments. Second, we studied the best allocation strategy to build our investments based on our age and our risk tolerance. And to simplify our long-term investment strategy, we have our traditional 401k from our employer contributions, Roth 401k from personal contributions, Roth IRA, and HSA as our investment vehicles. Inside these investment vehicles, we invest in the S&P 500 index fund, the U.S. total market stock market index fund, sector ETFs, and individual stocks. Those investment vehicles are going to be completely separate from the pensions that we're going to collect starting at age 62. And that's assuming that Social Security will still be around. But we're going to have my military pension starting at age 58 for serving in the reserve with some active duty time, and Social Security retirement benefits, hopefully at age 62, federal pension at age 62, and the state pension at age 55. The ideal situation is that we make $100,000 a year just in retirement pensions starting at age 62 and take some money out of our retirement to travel the world and live in different countries throughout the year and purchase more assets. And I encourage you to create your own diagram like this or schedule a coaching session with me by visiting firestitcher.com/coaching. That is completely free for you to do. And here's how we prioritize our investments. Our number one priority is to get the employer match with the 401k. This is free money that we will never leave on the table. If my employer gives me a 100% match on my 5% personal contribution, that 5% contribution is the bare minimum I will invest in my 401k. Once we get the employer match, then I move on to the HSA and contribute up to the maximum, which is $7,750 for family coverage or $3,850 for individuals in the year 2023. If you're 55 or older, you can contribute an additional $1,000 to your HSA. I prioritize my HSA because it's not just for my medical and dental expenses, but this investment vehicle comes with quadruple tax advantages that allow me to lower my taxes, my taxable income, grow my investments tax free, and make withdrawals from HSA tax free as long as they're for qualified medical expenses. And the next one is our Roth IRA, which is $6,500 each for me and my wife, so a total of $13,000. We believe that the government tax rates will continue to increase in the future due to the continuous decline of the birth rate. So we're taking advantage of the Roth IRA tax benefits now so that we don't pay any taxes when we're in our 60s. After we max out our Roth IRA and HSA, then we go back to our 401k to maximize the rest of the contribution. The maximum personal contribution limit is $22,500 for the year 2023. We don't just want to have $1 million in our 401k. We want to have $2 million, $3 million, or $4 million so that we never have to worry about running out of money. It's not greed. It's just insurance for our long-term retirement. And after we have our long-term retirement investments maxed out, then we move on to the taxable investment accounts for our early retirement. And we invest in growth stocks, dividend stocks, and other taxable investments so that we can purchase more real estate and diversify our income in the future. And we invest in our taxable brokerage accounts so that we can purchase brand new vehicles in the future without ever taking out any debt. We're also going to have dividends that will pay for our living expenses during our early retirement. And that will be in our 40s and 50s. And I have several videos about the early retirement strategy, so be sure to check them out on my channel after the live stream. And this investment priority I just showed you shouldn't change while you're still actively employed, and whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, or 50s, or 60s. As long as you're still actively employed and not ready to retire yet, doing the 401k match first, Roth second, and then tax deferred always makes sense. And this is not just my fundamentals or philosophy of investing. Almost every financial expert I've ever talked to agrees that we should prioritize the employer match, Roth, and then tax deferred in that order. And once you have your investment vehicle set up, the next step is to figure out how much you can save or for those investment vehicles. Could you max out your contributions to your Roth IRA, HSA, or 401k? Then the next step is to figure out your allocation strategy. How much of your investments do you want in stocks and bonds? And it's important to do some stress tests at least once a year to make sure your investments can handle some financial stress like we saw in 2022. When my stocks went down by 20, 30, or 40% in 2022, I had some blue chip investments that held steady at positive returns. You also don't want to be too heavy in bonds where they don't grow as much in your retirement, right? Because making 3% annually won't get you to the retirement number that you want. And I encourage you to download my compound interest calculator and other financial resources for absolutely free by visiting firesuccess.com/resources. Now let's get into the average 401k balance in your 20s. Let me know in the comment section down below if you're ahead or behind. So according to Northwestern Mutual's 2023 Planning and Progress Study, Americans in their 20s or between the ages of 20 and 29 have saved $35,800 on average for retirement. Their average retirement goal is $1.2 million, which is a lot lower than the expectations the older generations have set, which I'll talk about later on in this live stream. And I'll make sure to make these into clips so you can watch them in my YouTube playlist. But anyway, I want you to keep in mind that $1.2 million is just the average, and it's obviously not adjusted for inflation in the future years. With a 4% withdrawal rule, $1.2 million multiplied by 4% is $48,000 a year. That's the safe withdrawal rate according to the Trinity study. And if you adjusted $48,000 by inflation, and let's say people in their 20s on average want to retire in 35 years, that $48,000 would turn into $114,000 a year in the year 2058. So that $114,000 a year in retirement would require these people in their 20s to adjust their retirement goal to $2.85 million. But to make this video simple, I'm going to keep the retirement number at $1.2 million. And here's how much you'll need to invest every month with a 7% average annual return to achieve $1.2 million in your retirement accounts by the time you turn 60 years old. This is also assuming that you have $35,800 invested, which is pretty incredible for people in their 20s. One thing to keep in mind about this data is that this is assuming that you already have $35,800 invested, which is pretty hard to pull off for someone in their 20s. So don't get thrown off by these numbers, because I'm going to show you my financial independence calculator just in a little bit. And these numbers can go up based on your retirement number. If you don't think 1.2 million is enough, then you'll need to increase your savings rate. At the age of 20, you have the best advantage because time is on your side. You'll need to invest a minimum of $277 a month to get to $1.2 million with a 7% average annual return. This is also assuming that you only invest $277 for the next 40 years, which is not something you want to do. You want to always increase your contributions every single year. And you see how the numbers go up as your age goes up, right? There's a big difference between the age of 20 and 29, and that's over twice the amount in just a matter of 10 years. And I encourage you to get my financial independence calculator for absolutely free by visiting firesuccess.com/resources. But basically, you can adjust how much money you have currently saved in this block, okay? And you can even increase your average annual return from 7% to 8%, 9%, or 10%, depending on the performance of your investment portfolio. You can also adjust your current age, if you're 25, 26, or whatever, and your desired retirement age. If you don't want to retire at 60, you can adjust to 61, 62, whatever you want. Maybe you make a pretty good income now to invest more, which allows you to reduce your desired retirement age. And for this video tutorial, I'm going to keep the annual inflation rate to 0%. I know that's not how it's done, but I wanted to keep it simple to calculate the retirement number at $1.2 million. But I always recommend that you put 2.5% annual inflation rate here. And down here is where you put your estimated annual expenses when you retire. With $48,000 a year in retirement, you're going to need $1.2 million in today's dollars or $2.13 million in future dollars. So if you're 20 years old right now, you're going to need to invest at least $277 per month to achieve $1.2 million in your retirement nest eggs by age 60. And I always recommend that you invest at the bare minimum of 15% of your gross income towards your long-term retirement vehicles, like your 401k, Roth IRA, or HSA. But if you want to maintain the same lifestyle when you get to your retirement age, like you have now, you're going to need to save at least 25% of your gross income towards your retirement. Let me show you how it works on my 401k calculator. And again, you can download this 401k calculator for absolutely free by visiting firesightshare.com/resources. And you can put your age, and I'm going to make this bigger here. You can put your age in the top left corner here, okay? And you can put the current balance as of 2023, and I'm going to start with $35,800 for the 20-year-old. So the gross income I'm going to start with, let's see, is $50,000, which is about the national average for the 20s. If you make less than that or less or more than that, just change the amount there. For this scenario, I'm going to start with a 5% personal contribution rate. I'm also going to add a 3% employer match or employer contribution every year. And I'm also going to assume that the investments will perform a 7% average annual return or net return until retirement. I'm also going to increase the 401k contribution here by 1% every year starting at age 20. It'll go from 6% to 15% in 10 years. Do you see that under contribution rate? 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way to 15%. Okay. I'm also going to assume that your gross income will increase by an average of 2% annually. Do you see it? From 50,000, 51,000, 52,000. Okay. Which means that your employer match will also increase by 2% annually. Keep in mind that I'm taking the most conservative approach to the 401k contributions and return on investments. But anyway, let's assume that you start with $35,800 and your income starts at $50,000. If you consistently raise your personal contributions to 15% of your income until you retire at age 60, you could have, check this out, all the way to the bottom, okay? You could have over $2.8 million with just a 7% average annual return. You're going to meet that goal of 1.2 million by age 49. You could be 28 years old right now and you'll still hit that goal by 57 years old. Even if you don't get an employer match, you still end up with $2.4 million. If you're not getting an employer match, just go up top, put that as 0% if you don't get any employer match. It'll give you the amount without the match, okay? But if you're in your 20s watching this video, you're by far in the best position to grow that 401k to at least 7 figures by the time you retire at age 55. Remember that your 401k allows you to withdraw penalty-free under the rule of 55. And I made a video about that, so you can search for Fireside Chat rule of 55, okay? But if you truly want to achieve financial independence and retire early, you need to work on getting your retirement savings rate to at least 25%. So let's assume that you start increasing your contribution from 15% there to 25% in 5 years with a 7% average annual return. You're going to have over, check this out, this is going to be crazy, $3.5 million by the time you turn 60 years old. By the time you're 55, you're going to have almost $2.4 million under the rule of 55. These numbers don't lie. Hips don't lie either. Okay. That's what Shakira said. But I don't know about you. I'm feeling 22. Sorry, that's from Taylor Swift. But 3.5 million sounds better than 1.2 million. If you adjust it by inflation, Gen Z is by far the most financially literate generation. And I really hope that many generations after that can get better and better. And according to Fidelity, the amount of IRA accounts opened by Gen Z increased by 25% in the first quarter of 2023 compared with a year ago. And I have clients in their 20s, and they're way smarter than I ever was when I was in my 20s. I spent every dollar I had in my 20s, and I really wish that I hadn't. And Gen Z also had the best 401k performances with an increase of 34% in the first quarter of 2023 compared with the first quarter of 2022. So if you're in your 20s, you're by far in the best position to work on your early retirement strategy. If you're being intentional with your retirement savings, It's entirely possible to retire in your 40s, 50s, or 60s. You can absolutely do better than your parents who didn't receive any financial education in their high schools. I encourage you to get smarter with money by visiting firestation.com/resources to download those free spreadsheets. Let's get into the average 401k balance in your 30s. Let me know in the comment section down below if you're ahead or behind. So, according to Northwestern Mutual's 2023 Planning and Progress Study, Americans in their 30s or between the ages of 30 and 39 have saved $67,400 on average for retirement. Their average retirement goal is $1.44 million for the millennial generation. And I want you to keep in mind that $1.44 million is just the average, and it's obviously not adjusted for inflation in the future years. With a 4% withdrawal rate, that 1.44 million multiplied by 4% is almost $58,000 a year. That's the safe withdrawal rate according to the Trinity study. Okay, and if you adjusted $58,000 a year by inflation, and let's say people in their 30s on average want to retire in 25 years, that $58,000 a year would turn into $107,000 a year in the year 2048. So that $107,000 a year in retirement would require these people in their 30s to adjust their retirement goal to $2.675 million. But to make this video simple, I'm going to keep the retirement number at $1.44 million. And here's how much you'll need to invest every month with a 7% average annual return to achieve $1.44 million in your retirement accounts by the time you turn 60 years old. I'm not going to read off every single one of them, but feel free to just take a screenshot of it if you want to. And these numbers go up based on your retirement number. If you don't think 1.4 million is enough, then you'll need to increase your savings rate. I don't want you to feel discouraged though, because you don't have the same advantage as you once did in your 20s. I didn't start investing until I was 31 years old. I'm going to be 37 this year. And I feel like I've caught up on my retirement numbers because I became very intense with my retirement savings. And at the age of 30, you'll need to invest a minimum of $817 a month to get to $1.44 million with a 7% average annual return. This is also assuming that you already have $67,400 in investments. You see how the numbers go up as your age goes up, right? There's a big difference again between the age of 30 and 39. That's over twice the amount in just a matter of 10 years. And I encourage you to get my financial independence calculator for absolutely free by visiting firestation.com/resources. And if you don't have anything invested from your 20s, you're going to need to invest at a bare minimum of 15% of your gross income towards your long-term retirement vehicles like your 401k, Roth IRA, and HSA. But if you want to maintain the same lifestyle when you get to your retirement age like you have now, you're going to need at least save at least 25% of your gross income towards your retirement. And let me show you my 401k calculator here. Okay. So let's assume that you have $67,000 invested so far. All right. The gross income I'm going to start with is $60,000, which is about the national average for people in their 30s. For this scenario, I'm going to start with a 15% contribution rate. Okay. And I'm also going to add a 3% employer contribution rate. And I'm also going to assume that the investments will perform a 7% average annual net return until retirement. And I'm going to maintain the 15% contribution rate for the entire lifetime. And I'm also going to assume that your gross income will increase by an average of 2% annually, which means that both your personal and employer contributions will increase by 2% annually. Okay. And keep in mind that I'm still taking the most conservative approach to the 401k contributions and return on investments. We all know that the S&P 500 has performed like 13% average annual return for the last 10 years. But anyway, let's assume that your income starts with $60,000. If you consistently invest until you retire at age 60, you could have over $2 million with a 7% average annual return. You're going to meet that goal of $1.44 million exactly by age 56 if you start at the age of 30 though. If you're 31 or older, then you're going to have to either increase your savings rate or increase your income to meet the retirement goal. Okay. You could also bet on the stock market to perform better than 7%, but that's not something that we have control over. But here's why you need to have or you need to work on getting your retirement savings rate to 25%. So let's assume that you start increasing your contribution from 15% to 25% in 5 years. Okay. With a 7% average annual return, you're going to have over $2.6 million invested by the time you turn 60 years old. By the time you're 55, you're going to have over or almost $1.8 million under the rule of 55. And obviously, if you make more money, like in the six figures, you need to contribute at least 25% of your income or just max out the retirement contributions every year. This is a numbers game. If you didn't put any money in your retirement in your 20s, you have some catching up to do. Okay. In our investment timeline, I want to show you this because I'm in my mid 30s. I want you to take a look at my investment timeline in my 30s. You need to make your own timeline to understand how compound interest can work in your favor. And I'm not going to go too much in depth on this because I already made a separate video about it, and I'll put that video in the description below. This is the most important bracket of my timeline because I want to make sure I have the assets and income for the rest of my life and not have to rely on Social Security, because we all know that it can go away at any time, especially for people who are in their 30s. I was 31 years old when I started maxing out my Roth IRA and Roth 401k because it's going to have long-term growth, right? And keep in mind that I'm not touching any of these investments until at least I'm 59 and a half. Even when I retire early at age 45, the investments in my Roth IRA, HSA, and 401k will continue to grow with compound interest. This is why I'm maximizing my retirement contribution every single year until I retire early, so that retirement in 401k will continue to grow going into my 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And in the year 2041, that's the year I'm going to be eligible to withdraw from my Roth 401k and Roth IRA. Using my own compound interest calculator, I should have about $1.9 million between the 401k and TSP. My wife and I are going to have roughly 3.5 million just in our Roth IRAs because we max out our contributions every single year. And I'm also going to have my military pension starting at age 58 for serving in the reserve with some active duty time. If you retire on active duty, then you'll start collecting a pension as soon as you retire. But that's not the case for me because I'm going to be retiring as a reservist. My wife she's gonna have her state pension fund at the age of 55 with the possibility to buy back some time. If Social Security will still be around, I'd be happy to start collecting early at age 62. I'm also going to start collecting my federal employee pension at age 62. And I'm projecting that my wife and I can collectively receive over $100,000 a year in total retirement pensions. And lastly, we should have enough in our HSA or health savings account to pay for our medical expenses throughout our retirement. We can actually use the HSA to pay for any expenses starting at the age of 65. You can watch my HSA investment strategy linked in the description below. And when I retire early, I should have enough passive income streams from my taxable investment accounts with dividend stocks and growth stocks to live on the earnings and interest, and enough cash reserves and rental income to pay for any additional expenses. And starting at age 50, this is where I get to do Roth IRA conversions that I make from traditional 401k to the with the 5-year rule. And I also did an extensive video on that, so be sure to check it out in the description below. And if you can't find that link, just search for Fireside Chat 5-year conversion rule. Okay. And I never once mentioned anything about taking out a debt. I'm debt free except for my mortgage, and I plan to keep it that way throughout my lifetime. If I'm ever going to take out a debt, I would never use a loan against my primary residence or real estate properties. I would probably leverage against my taxable investment portfolio using an SB lock or securities based lines of credit when it reaches $2 million or maybe $5 million. You can check out the SB lock video or the buy, borrow, die strategy linked in the description below. But I'm not looking to leverage anything to retire early. By the time you're in your 30s. You probably have multiple 401ks from your previous employers. You have options to either roll it over to your IRA or your current 401k. I'm mentioning this because there are over 20 million forgotten and lost 401k accounts. That's crazy. And moving those dollars out of your old 401k could work in your favor if you move it to your traditional IRA or Roth IRA and take full control of your investments. If you're behind on your 401k investment, you need to reassess your overall finances by redoing your budget. If you have any consumer debt, then you should prioritize paying them off as soon as possible and then raising your 401k contributions. If you're serious about the FIRE movement and you want to retire early, you have to maximize your 401k contribution every single year. I encourage you to schedule a free session with me by visiting firestation.com/coaching. Now let's get into the average 401k balance in your 40s. Let me know in the comment section down below if you're ahead or behind, okay? So according to the same study that I've been talking about, Northwestern Mutual's 2023 Planning and Progress Study, Americans in their 40s or between the ages of 40 and 49 have saved $77,400 on average for retirement. Their average retirement goal is $1.28 million for millennials and Gen X. And I want you to keep in mind that $1.28 million is just the average, and it's obviously not adjusted for inflation in the future years. With a 4% withdrawal rate, $1.28 million multiplied by 4% is $51,200 a year, and that's the safe withdrawal rate with the Trinity study. And if you adjusted $51,200 by inflation, and let's say people in their 40s on average want to retire in 20 years, that $51,200 would turn into $84,000 a year in the year 2043, assuming that the inflation rate is at 2.5%. So that $84,000 a year in retirement would require these people in their 40s to adjust their retirement goal to $2.1 million. But to make this video simple, I'm going to keep the retirement number at $1.28 million. And here's how much you'll need to invest every month with a 7% average annual return to achieve $1.28 million in your retirement accounts by the time you turn 60 years old. And these numbers go up based on your retirement number. If you don't think 1.28 million is enough, then you'll need to increase your savings rate. A 40-year-old person will need to invest almost $2,000 a month or $24,000 a year into their retirement to achieve that $1.28 million in 20 years. That's not going to be easy for someone making less than $100,000 a year, depending on where that person lives, right? This is also assuming that you already have $77,400 in investments, because the investment timeline is a lot shorter for people in their 40s than when they were in their 20s or 30s. They have a lot less time for their portfolios to grow over time, right? I don't want you to be discouraged, though, from looking at these high numbers, because this is based on a 7% average annual return and the retirement age of 60. Your investment return could be a lot higher over the years. And you could also increase your retirement age if you feel like you started your investing journey a lot later than everyone else. But in any event, you have to become more intense with your savings rate, or the chances of achieving your retirement number will diminish over time. And let me switch over to my favorite 401k calculator here. And again, you can download this 401k calculator for absolutely free by visiting firestation.com/resources. I don't do courses like a lot of YouTubers do. Good for them. They make a lot of money from the courses. I don't like to do courses because these numbers constantly change and the cost of living change. And, I feel like this is way better live on one-on-one sessions, okay? The gross income with the for the 40-year-olds, I'm going to start with $65,000 a year, which is about the national average for people in their 40s as of 2023. For this scenario, I'm going to start with a 15% personal contribution rate, and I'm also going to keep that 3% employer contribution rate. I'm also going to assume that the investments will perform a 7% average annual return or net return until retirement. I'm going to maintain the 15% contribution rate for the entire lifetime. And I'm also going to assume that your gross income will increase by 2% annually, which means that both your personal contributions and your employer contributions will increase by 2%. Okay. And this is the most conservative approach with the 401k calculator. But anyway, let's assume that your income starts with $65,000. If you consistently invest 15% until you retire at age 60, you could have $977,000 with a 7% average annual return. But you're most likely going to hit that goal of 1.28 million if you work until age 63 or 64. 67 years old, you should have $1.7 million if you consistently invest 15% annually with a 2% increase in income every single year. And again, I want you to keep in mind that this chart is assuming that you're starting at 40 years old and you have $77,400 in the beginning balance at the very top, okay? And your income starts at $65,000 a year. You can download this spreadsheet and adjust the numbers and find out where you are with your contribution rates. If you don't get an employer match, you just go to this cell right here and just type in 0 and just type in 0%, okay? But let me go to the next tab here and explain why you need to work on getting your retirement savings rate to 25%. So let's assume, especially in your 40s, let's assume that you're 40 years old and you're going to start increasing your contribution from 15% to 25% in 5 years, okay? So you're going to go from 15, 17, 19, 21, 23, and then 25%, okay? With a 7% average annual return, you're going to have over $1.2 million invested by the time you turn 60 years old. By the time you're 67 years old, you should have over $2.3 million. And obviously, if you make more money, like in the six figures, like someone said in the comment section, you need to contribute at least 25% of your income or just max out their retirement contributions every single year. This is a numbers game. If you didn't put any money in your retirement in your 20s or 30s, you have some catching up to do. The key is to maintain your savings rate. If you can't achieve 25% right now, then start with 15% and pay down your debt and reduce your expenses as much as possible. If you can't reduce your expenses, the only other way is to increase your income. If you can't do either of that, then I'm not sure what to tell you, because this is a simple math problem then when it comes to how much you want to be invested in your retirement. Okay. And if you're married, keep in mind that your spouse can contribute to a Roth IRA even if your spouse doesn't work. You just have to file your taxes jointly and make less than the Roth IRA income limits. If you're already maxing out your 401k contribution, make sure to max out your Roth IRA contributions as well. If your employer offers a health savings account, if you're under the high deductible health plan or HDHP, that's another investment vehicle that you can use to invest for your retirement. Don't miss out on the HSA contributions, because you're going to need that money for healthcare expenses when you retire. You're not going to be eligible for Medicare until you turn 65. Check this out. You can even use the HSA to pay for the Medicare premium. Make sure to check out my HSA videos, and I will put that video link in the description below. And I've talked to several clients in their 40s about their finances in the past. And if you're in the same boat, I encourage you to schedule a free session with me by visiting firestarchat.com/coaching. Now let's get into the average 401k balance in your 50s. Let me know in the comment section down below if you're ahead or behind. And so according to the same study that I've been talking about, the Northwestern Mutual's 2023 Planning and Progress Study, Americans in their 50s or between the ages of 50 and 59 have saved $110,900 on average for retirement. Their average retirement goal is $1.56 million for Gen X. And I want you to keep in mind that $1.56 million is just the average, and it's not adjusted for inflation in the future years. With a 4% withdrawal rate, $1.56 million multiplied by 4% is $62,400 a year, okay? And that's the safe withdrawal rate according to the Trinity study. And I'm not sure why Gen X or people in their 50s have a higher retirement goal, but that's the survey I got from Northwestern Mutual. And if you adjusted $62,400 by inflation, and let's say people in their 50s on average want to retire in 10 years, that $62,400 would turn into $80,000 a year in the year 2033. So that $80,000 a year in retirement would require these people in their 50s to adjust their retirement goal to $2 million. But to make this video simple, I'm gonna keep the retirement number at $1.56 million. And this is my financial independence calculator. You can download this financial independence calculator for absolutely free by visiting fivesuch.com/resources. And so let's assume that you are 50 years old with $110,900 invested already. Okay, like the survey says. I'm also going to assume that your investments make a 7% average annual return. And I'm going to put the annual expenses down here to 62,400 in this block, which gives you a retirement number of $1.56 million. So if you're looking to retire at the age of 60, you're going to have to invest at least $97,000 a year or $8,000 a month. Unless your income is at least $150,000 or $200,000 a year, this is going to be very hard to achieve. Not impossible, but extremely difficult unless you have a big shovel to do so. But this number assumes that you're not collecting any Social Security retirement benefits. And this FIRE calculator is pretty awesome. I'm going to pat myself on the back here because this calculator is pretty awesome. Because you can add your Social Security income and or any other income sources on this spreadsheet. And if you go to line 11 here, you can add your total annual Social Security retirement income on there. So let me put $24,000. Okay. If you're looking to collect $2,000 a month from Social Security, if you include your Social Security, instead of $8,000 a month, you'll just need to invest $4,400 a month to achieve $960,000 for your retirement number. That's incredible, right? You can even put your other income sources like your net real estate income, dividend income, or other pensions under line 11 of this calculator. But the other thing you'll need to adjust is your retirement age, okay? Because you can't collect your Social Security retirement at the earliest until the age 62. So you'll get your full retirement benefit at age 67 and then the max retirement at age 70. So if I change it to 62, your monthly investment will be reduced to $3,300 a month. Okay. So that's not as bad as $8,000, right? Now let's take a look at my 401k calculator here. Okay. For people in their 50s with Social Security retirement benefits, I'm going to assume that you need at least $1 million in your 401k to retire comfortably. The gross income I'm going to start is $70,000 per year for this scenario. And I'm going to start with a 15% contribution rate. And I'm also going to add a 3% employer contribution rate every year. And I'm also going to assume that the investments will perform a 7% average annual return until retirement. And I'm also going to assume that your gross income will increase an average of 2% annually, which means that both your personal and employer contributions will increase by 2% annually. But the problem with just the 15% contribution rate is that you're only going to have $568,000 invested by the time you're 62, which is about $22,700 in annual retirement income with a 4% withdrawal rate. It might not be enough for your retirement if you retire at the age of 62, but at the age of 67, that's over $900,000 invested, which will give you $36,000 a year in annual income. You could also wait until age 70 to have over $1.1 million, and you could collect the maximum Social Security retirement benefits. The choice is yours. It's completely up to you. Now, let me go to the next tab here and explain to you why you need to work on getting your retirement savings rate to 25%. So if you're 50 years old with $110,000 invested with a 25% savings rate, making $70,000 a year in gross income, you should have $735,000 by age 62, almost $1.2 million by age 67, and over $1.5 million by age 70. Now, I know a lot of you in your 50s watching this are becoming anxious about your retirement savings. And I'm not just guessing because I've talked to several people in my individual sessions who are in their late 40s, early 50s, trying to figure out if they have enough money invested in their retirement savings. And here's the truth. Like that Yahoo Finance article said, Gen Xers are in the worst financial situation than any other generation. Not every one of you, but in general sense. Okay. There are many contributing factors to why that is. So I'll probably make a separate video about that in the future. Gen Xers carry the most student loan debt and credit card debt. You can look that up and fact check me. Millennials actually have the second most debt, right behind Gen Xers. But the problem for Gen Xers is that they're much closer to the retirement age than millennials. The youngest Gen Xers are 43, and the oldest Gen Xers are 58 years old. So there are 58-year-old Gen Xers that won't be able to retire comfortably in the next 5 to 10 years if they have nothing invested in their retirement savings. This is a scary scenario, especially for people in their late 50s. And if you feel behind with your retirement, you have to increase your retirement savings or raise your income to maximize your retirement contribution. I know you're probably tired of hearing that, but it is a simple math problem that you'll need to solve if you have any non-consumer debt right now. You need to prioritize paying off your debt. After your non-consumer debt is paid off, you'll need to work on raising your retirement contributions to 25%. If you can do 25%, then start with 15%. You also need a plan to pay off your mortgage because you're in the risk averse territory where you need to reduce your liabilities to zero. You don't have to pay off your mortgage in your 50s, but you need to have a plan to pay your mortgage off before you retire from the workforce. And I've talked to several clients in their 50s about their finances in the past. And if you're in the same boat, I encourage you to schedule a free session with me by visiting firestitcher.com/coaching. Now, let's get into the average 401k balance in your 60s. Let me know in the comment section down below if you're in your 60s and if you're ahead or behind. Okay, so the study shows that Americans in their 60s or between the ages of 60 and 69 have saved $112,500 on average for retirement. Their average retirement goal is $968,000 for the baby boomers. And I want you to keep in mind that $968,000 is just the average from the survey conducted by Northwestern Mutual. With a 4% withdrawal rate, $968,000 multiplied by 4% is $38,720 a year. That's the safe withdrawal rate according to the Trinity study. Baby boomers' retirement numbers are much lower because most of them will have started collecting their Social Security retirement benefits. And keep in mind that if you're collecting Social Security retirement or survivor's benefits and working at the same time, your benefits are reduced but not truly lost. So let me explain to you. So for example, if you were born after January 2nd, 1960, then your full retirement age for retirement insurance benefits is 67. If you work and you're at full retirement age or older, then you get to keep all of your benefits. If you're younger than full retirement age or 67, then you get limited Social Security benefits. In 2023, they're going to deduct $1 from your benefits for each $2 you earn above $21,240. If you reach full retirement age in 2023, they're going to deduct $1 from your benefits for each $3 that you earn above $56,520 until the month you reach full retirement age. There's a Social Security retirement benefit table that you should check out on their official government website. Okay, and let's go over the numbers on my FIRE calculator in their 60s, which you can download for absolutely free by visiting firestitcher.com/resources. And let's assume that you are 60 years old with $112,500 invested, like the survey says. I'm also going to assume that your investments make a 7% average annual return. Now, I'm going to put the annual expenses down here, $38,720 in this block, and then I'm going to calculate, which gives you a retirement number of $968,000. If you go to line 11, okay, right here, and of this spreadsheet, you can add your total annual Social Security retirement income on there. So let me put $24,000. Okay, if you're looking to collect $2,000 a month from Social Security, if you include your Social Security, you need to have at least $368,000 invested to supplement your retirement income. Because if you have $45,000 a year from Social Security and collect 4% of $368,000, that's a total of $38,720 in retirement income. Now, let's take a look at my 401k calculator for people in their 60s. Unfortunately, if your gross income is $70,000, you're going to need to save at least 25% of your income to achieve your retirement number by the time you turn 67 years old. But this is based on your total retirement income. Okay. If you're looking to collect more on Social Security, then you could theoretically live on $350,000 or $400,000 in total retirement. This is all just rough numbers. What you really need to do is to figure out your annual expenses. Because if you think you can live on $40,000 a year in retirement with your mortgage paid off, $25,000 could come from Social Security, and $15,000 of that could come from your investments. If you multiply $15,000 by 25, that's $375,000 total that you're going to need invested in your 401k or other retirement vehicles. If you need $20,000 a year from your 401k investments, then multiply that by 25, and that gives you $500,000 with a 4% withdrawal rate. That makes sense so far, right? Now, I know a lot of you in your 60s watching this are becoming anxious about your retirement. You might have your parents or grandparents approaching their retirement age, and you're worried about them not reaching their retirement goals. And here's the truth. If you feel behind with your retirement, you have to increase your retirement contributions, raise your income, and eliminate your liabilities. You do not want to go into your retirement carrying a student loan, car loan, credit card debt, or mortgage debt. If you have any non-consumer debt right now, you need to prioritize paying off your debt. I have so many free resources that you can use for absolutely free by visiting firesuch.com/resources. You can use my debt payoff spreadsheet to pay off your debt fast. You can use my 401k calculator to figure out how much you need to invest every year to reach your goal. Okay. And again, I need to emphasize that if you're carrying any significant debt, you'll have to prioritize that to make sure that your Social Security income is going to cover your basic expenses. You'll need to have a comprehensive and very disciplined financial plan before you retire from your 9-to-5 job. You don't need a financial advisor to tell you that you need to live below your means. You don't need to pay them $3,000 a year to tell you, oh, you got to live below your means. Okay. You don't need a financial coach like me to tell you that you need to invest more to have $1.2 million invested in your 401k to retire comfortably. It really comes down to your behavior spending. Just because you spend $60,000 a year now, it doesn't mean that you need $60,000 a year to retire. If you still need help with your finances, I encourage you to schedule a free session with me by visiting firesuch.com/coaching. This has been another beast of a video, and I hope you got a lot out of it.